Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the session today. Apologies, we started a bit late today, but our instructor is here, Mr. Robert. We will start in a few seconds. Feel free to just post on the chat where you're from and when you're sitting for the PMP exam as well. And I will just pass on to you, Robert, to continue as I just let the other candidates join as well.
Okay. Good evening.
Okay.
Trying to share my screen.
That's okay.
Okay, can you look at my screen? Are you able to see it?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Robert Runazi, and I'm not sure I have had an opportunity before to present to the same team. And it's always a pleasure to have an engagement with people who are candidates who are preparing for the PMP exam. It's quite exciting, not just the learning, but the excitement that you're tending towards taking the exam and earning your PMP certificate, which is, of course, something that whoever has earned it is proud of, and it's a hard-earned certificate. Yeah, so it's again, I'm so passionate about project management, and therefore when I have an opportunity to engage with the candidates who want to either switch roles, I mean, they are moving from maybe other roles and they're getting into project management, or they just want to reinforce their knowledge in project management. It's always a pleasure to have an engagement with them. So my topic today is about empowering, negotiating, and delivering, which is really what project management is about. And if we get the three right, we actually succeed in delivering projects. I've worked on different types of projects. I've worked on tech projects. I've worked on infrastructure projects. I've also worked on projects in the social kind of sector. And there's nothing as exciting as delivering a successful project where you see the benefits, you see value, okay? But that, of course, is a result of so much that will have gone into, into the work that will have gone into the project to get to that point. So I looked at empowering as what our main responsibility is as PMs. We deliver as project managers. We deliver through people. We deliver through teams, and therefore these teams must be empowered. First of all, if we select the right teams, then we should empower them. And there's a lot of sense in empowering people because, first of all, you get commitment from them because they feel that they feel that sense of responsibility. Okay. And of course, that results into tapping into their creative potential, giving their best, wanting to deliver. And then the second point, which is about negotiating, of course, even with the teams, we negotiate as project managers, we negotiate all our way. We negotiate timelines, we negotiate who to work with, we negotiate the budget, we negotiate changes, we negotiate literally everything. And therefore, this is something that, is part of our work. It's our second nature, in other words. But in this sense, I looked at it from a stakeholder engagement point of view, where we engage the stakeholders, understand their interests, their needs from the project, understand their concerns, and have an engagement with them and negotiate. And the negotiation should lead to some sort of common agreement, consensus, which is key in project delivery, because from the get-go, when we are gathering requirements, when we are prioritizing requirements, when we are presenting the product throughout the process, as changes come in, it's all about negotiation. So I picked that one from a stakeholder engagement point of view. Then the third, which is delivering, I looked at it from the point of view of one, of course, delivering value, of course. But then where does it come from? The value of a project is born during the pre-project kind of work, where you have a need, or it's a boardroom idea, or it's a problem, or it's an opportunity. And this translates into like a business case, okay, justification for the need or for the opportunity, and you understand why. There's a clear rationale why this must be done, why this project is worth doing, okay? And then with that information in the business case, then the sponsors gauge whether they have the resources, they have the wherewithal to go ahead and sponsor the project. Then, of course, that's where value is clearly defined at the beginning. And of course, from the business case, the information about the rationale of the project translates into the project charter. And then the project charter, of course, reflects the objectives of the project. And once those objectives are met, then we will have realized the purpose of the project, which is delivering value. And then, of course, during the course of the project, you have got workflow. You have got the work itself, and you have got the teams. You have got the engagements with the stakeholders along the way, and the delivery of value could be, as you must have gone as you went through your notes, your resources. To begin with the PMBOK, value could be realized incrementally as we go, or it's delivered at the end, right at the end of the project, or it could even be realized much, much later. So there is value, the definition of value, which is normally captured in the benefits management plan. And then that's during pre-project. During the course of the project, our focus is on value, which is one of the project management principles, okay? Focus on value. And then throughout the course of the project, we as we define the scope, as we define the quality requirements, as we manage risks, as we execute, the focus is on value, okay? And then at the end, of course, there is a transition of the result of the project, which is the product, into the hands of the receiving organization or the ops or the operations, and that is benefits transition. And then the benefits transition kind of process is where now the product, which was built for a purpose and was tested at the end and proven to be meeting the acceptance criteria, now begins to deliver value, okay? So that's how I contextualize it. So every project starts with a promise, of course, that's the value. As modern project managers, our mandate is not to simply manage activities, but to rally the organization through the value delivery process. Okay, so we rally the organization through negotiations, through team engagement, and of course we build a shared understanding on what it is that we are pursuing as we, run the project, as we provide leadership for the project. So we always focus on value as the big picture, as the North Star for our project. So this is more or less the introduction that I just made, but this is for us to look at, and so that it's not just a voice, but something that is, written down. So to empower, building the team's engine, which is the team, focusing on harnessing their potential, enabling autonomy, and building a foundation of trust. We'll get to break it down. And as you know, this is reflected in lesson 2 and in lesson 4. Okay, and we get to see how teams are formed, how teams are built, and so on and so forth. Okay. By the way, towards the end, I've planned to have a moment where you can ask me anything that you feel that is on your heart, or that you read in the PMBOK or in your manual that you would want clarification on. Next, on negotiations, we engage stakeholders proactively. Of course, it all begins with identifying who has an interest, whose needs will be affected by the project activities, or who has concerns, who has requirements, who is the end user, who is the sponsor, who is the regulator, who is the funder, who are the communities that are within our environment. All these are stakeholders. And for us to align, it would require negotiations. We must be good negotiators. We must present the case for the project in a way that is acceptable to the stakeholders. Otherwise, they will be defensive, they will push back. It will be difficult for them to accept, their fair share of negotiations, and it can be difficult. So it's our responsibility as PMs, if we are to guarantee the success of the project, to be good negotiators. And we normally pick the term, the win-win, we always aim at the win-win kind of situation or result. And then delivering value translating needs and opportunities into benefits. Of course, we know projects are initiated because there is a need, there is an opportunity, there is a mandate, etc. But then if there is a need, then it must be met. If there is an opportunity, we have to realize the benefits from the opportunity. So the project then will come in to deliver that value. So we shift from the outputs, checking the boxes, 1, 2, 3, 4 we have delivered, to now having those things that we have checked in the boxes to realizing value. Okay. And that's why we have, for example, when we are correcting requirements, we manage so much. I want us to note 2 things here on delivery of value. 1, we mind about quality requirements. In other words, what is acceptable, what is fit for the purpose. Okay, so that's on the quality aspect. But we also mind about the change management. If, for example, we are running a project and we are delivering a product, we need to also ensure that on the other side, the receiving organization is ready, the receiving entity is ready to receive the product and, realize value. And we get to see this in, again, lesson 1, where there has to be change readiness on the other side. And it's one of the key things that we have to mind about as PMs. So we normally say that for a medium to large size project, you're better off having a change management effort accompanying it to avoid resistance or slow adoption of the result of the project. Okay. And that's about value. So we start off with the first one, a few things to note, to remind ourselves. I already said this is reflected in lesson 2, in forming a team. and also lesson 4 in leading the team. Okay, it's about the teams. I picked a few things, and I felt we could look at them as we reflect. When we talk about teams during team formation, I'm sure you've, as in your readings, in your review of the course content, you must have come across the clarification of roles and responsibilities. That's very important. You must have come across developing the ground rules of the team charter. Very important, especially if you're dealing with people from different backgrounds. And of course, with the team charter or the ground rules, that also translates into the stages of team formation. Here we're talking about when the group of people comes together, you assemble the team. Of course, they start off, in the forming stage, all those stages from forming through storming, through norming, all the way. And what you're trying to achieve is actually teamwork, team spirit, cohesion, bonding, having the team focusing, looking in one direction, pulling in the same direction, so that you're working with a team, not just a group of people who do not share anything, do not have anything in common, okay? And then, of course, it goes on, and there you, for example, use an org chart or something like that. So looking at these few points that I've put down, the keys to team success: 1, clear communication. And friends, and if you're leading a team and you want things to work, you must model what you want to see. So if as a PM, I'm not communicating well, or I'm not transparent, or I'm not communicating in time or engaging, then however much I say it won't take root. So we say there must be clear communication, transparency. And in terms of transparency, I'm sure in your course resources, you must have seen that information radiators are very important in reinforcing transparency, so that everybody knows where we are, the progress that we are making, and if there is anything that is not moving forward as planned, everybody gets concerned. Why? Because the information is available. Information radiators, task boards, Kanban board. You have the burn down charts, burn up charts. You have the velocity charts. You are able to visualize as a team how much progress you're making. Then, of course, the clarifying of roles and responsibilities, which starts in the early stages of the project. When we're setting up a project, we're looking at the scope of work and we're asking ourselves, who is going to be doing what? Who are they supposed to work with? And then we come up with a resource breakdown structure. And then we clarify the roles using a responsibility assignment matrix, maybe a RACI chart or something else. So that's about defining roles and responsibilities. Now, as we look at each one of these few points, I just say few, it's not exhaustive. It's just meant to provoke the thinking around empowering the team, okay? As we look at each one of these points that are put down, ask yourself, what would happen, or what would be the risk if this was not done? If there's no clear communication, what do you expect? There's fragmentation. People do not know what's happening, okay? Some people have got privy to some information, others do not know. Defining of roles and responsibilities, there's bound to be conflicts, and some work is left, and so there's lack of leadership. So whoever is leading the team is not doing their job. Then we get to the third, which is trust and respect, fostering a supportive and inclusive environment. As we all know, whenever we are leading projects and we bring together the project team, in most cases, they are coming from different backgrounds. They not only backgrounds as in coming from different organizations or they have been working in other places, but also they have different functions. So you have a diverse team, you have a cross-functional team, and you as a project manager, as a project leader, you have got to get this team to work as a team, have a common goal, have common goals, and look in the same direction, okay? So there must be inclusiveness, and we say you create a psychologically safe environment. That's what the PSE stands for. I'm sure you've also come across that. a psychologically safe environment where things are clear. If I'm unsure about something, the environment looks like I can ask if I'm not sure about something, okay? Even if I'm new in that environment, the environment it fosters that kind of safety. You feel secure. You can ask. You can say what you think. You can give your opinion. You can give an opinion that is different from colleagues in the room, and you show reason why. So we call that a psychologically safe environment, and it promotes mutual trust. I mean, you can trust the environment, you can trust where you are. And then the shared goals, of course, aligning efforts towards common project objectives. Normally, this is the responsibility of the project manager or even the team leaders. And we achieve this through meetings, meetings where we bring people together and we straighten up things and we listen to each other and we set the direction, okay? So that's meetings. Whenever you find meetings as a technique in a process, just know they are trying to get everybody aligned, okay? That's the usefulness of meetings, whether it's a kickoff, whether it's the kickoff meetings or the usual meetings, or maybe collaborative meetings like daily stand-ups. It's meant to align the team so that they understand and focus and commit to going in the same direction. Effective leadership. This is about guiding the team and resolving conflicts quickly. Whenever you have people coming together, they are, as we said, they're coming from different backgrounds, they have different perspectives, they have different ways, approaches to doing things. They are bound to be conflicts. People having different approaches, conflicting viewpoints, and that's not unhealthy. It's healthy. It's good because out of such conflicts or conflicting views, you have dialogue. If you have a good team leader, you have dialogue, and then the best approach, the best approach to doing things, of course, prevails. Okay, and then it promotes dialogue. It promotes debate. Okay, and we can only we can only achieve this if we as PMs or team leaders, we are emotionally intelligent. Okay, emotional intelligence. We know how to deal with people. We are active listeners. We listen to understand, not to judge. We put ourselves, we empathize, we put ourselves in other people's shoes and ask ourselves why they are thinking the way they are thinking, and we control ourselves not to prejudge, and and that way we would be in a better position to resolve any conflicts, any disagreements, and we become better PMs, better leaders. And then about collaboration, other than the soft parts, we also, of course, would need technology in terms of communication, in terms of having visibility of the project's progress. Okay, so these are points that I felt we should reflect on as we talk about empowering the teams. But of course, empowering the teams means that you give them responsibility. They own their work. Okay, and we get to see this in a situation where the PM or the project lead takes the facilitator role, the servant leader. So you step aside, provide the support, coaching, and all that, and let the teams own the work. Okay, we normally say, show them what to do, don't tell them how. Okay, let them figure out how. Maybe in the initial stages, they may not know, they may not come up with the best ideas, but let them first give it a thought. And by doing that, you are tapping into their creative potential. And that way, you are likely to have the best ideas, the best approaches to getting things done, and also above all, more commitment. Why? Because these are their ideas, and they will be behind them to ensure that the work is done. So it's about to empower effectively, to adopt a servant leadership style. Okay, this comes, of course, gradually. I already talked about creating a psychologically safe environment where people feel secure. They can say what they think. they can sometimes challenge the status quo. That's what professional project management is about. Why are we doing things this way? And then if you're a good leader, you ask, so what would you have to say? What is the other way? And by being open to such and not bullying this person, you are able to, listen, and they give ideas and the other one gives theirs. And that way, you're creating that environment where they feel safe to express themselves, and you'd be surprised the kind of ideas that pop up. Interestingly, most of the questions that come in the PMP exam test our ability to allow teams to take the center stage in getting the affairs of the project done. For example, in estimating activity durations, the teams estimating activity cost estimates, okay? The teams defining activities, the teams decomposing work packages into activities, the teams estimating how much they will do in a sprint, the teams finding solutions to problems within themselves. Okay, so it's important to understand that, and if you understand it that way, most of the questions that come on the PMP exam would be testing. So actually, some of the questions on the people domain would be testing to see if you appreciate that teams should take a center stage. Team decisions should be allowed to prevail. Why? Because these are the foot soldiers. They are the ones getting the work done. So let's look at this question. Team members express frustration because their functional manager does not listen to their opinions. They seem reluctant to devote themselves to the remainder of the project. Now, this is the result. If we do not listen to, as PMs, if we don't listen to our teams, what do you expect? They withdraw their commitment, okay? And this is exactly what this scenario is projecting. So what should the project manager do? A, demonstrate support for the team by discussing their goals and beliefs. Listen to them. Listen to them, give them consideration, okay? So A seems to be in support of team engagement. B, break the remaining work into smaller tasks and divide the tasks among the team. Now, that's not the responsibility of the PM. The PM is not going to break down the work into smaller tasks. You should instead be allowing the teams to do that, okay? And they should own up. You should take the facilitator kind of posture and allow the teams to take responsibility of the work. And that's what the answer proposes on B is supposed to be done by the team, not the PM. C, ask the team to prioritize the tasks remaining in the project. Okay, so that's not a bad thing, but does it resolve the matter? Okay, it's not a bad thing at all, asking the team to prioritize the tasks remaining in the project. You could work with them in prioritizing the tasks, but that's not as good as A, okay? Because C seems to be taking back the responsibility to the team, okay? D, discuss the team's concerns with the functional manager. So where is the functional manager in the bigger picture? The functional manager is on the side of either the beneficiary or the sponsor. So never try to answer, pick an option in the answers where you're delegating your role as a PM. Otherwise, in real practice, the project manager would probably be a candidate to getting fired. If you start for everything that happens within your team, within your RIM, you are asking the sponsor or you're referring the matter to a functional manager or a PMO. That's not a very good, that's not a good answer. So A is the best answer. And if you are to say maybe B is not a bad one, but A is the best. Demonstrate support for the team, okay? You have to be there for the team, discuss their goals, engage them, listen to them, and that way you can get back, regain their support and commitment to the project. So this is the answer. The primary goal of a project manager in relation to the project team is to ensure that the team has the time and resources to do their job and to remove any barriers. Now, that's very important, be it on the part of the team lead or the project manager, or even a scrum master or an agile coach, dealing with any barriers, any issues, any challenges that may be standing in their way. Okay, so the teams can focus on the work, provide the support. Okay, by standing up for the team's beliefs, the project manager is demonstrating their support for the team. So we get to the other options, breaking the remaining work into smaller tasks, dividing tasks, and asking the team to prioritize them will not solve the frustration of the team members are facing. And discussing the team's concern with the function manager may not help. Okay, you're running away from the problem. So the next one, which was about negotiating, the first one was about the team, okay, was about empowering the team. And the second one is about negotiating, and this is about stakeholders. As I said at the beginning, that's the perspective that I took. So, and this is reflected in lesson 2, identifying and engaging stakeholders. So what we know about stakeholder engagement, of course, we say from lesson 2 that we first identify the stakeholders, and stakeholder identification starts in the early stages of the project. Why? Because some of the stakeholders are key to the success of the project. They could be the sponsors of the project. They are the funders of the project. They are regulators. They are the beneficiaries, okay? Maybe the beneficiary institution or something like that, okay? So you want to start identifying them early, and not just identifying them, but understanding what their interests are in the project. You understand what their interests are in the project. And then once you understand their interests, then you do the analysis or mapping, as it's called. You get to know whether they are positive or negative, they're internal or external, and then you get to also understand how much power they wield, how much power they have over the project decisions. Can they influence the outcome of the project? How much authority do they have? And then you also consider how much interest, because they may have authority, but not so much interest, okay? And I'm sure through your readings on lesson 2, you understand the power interest grid, okay? And then also you have all these other models that are used in stakeholder mapping or analysis. You have the stakeholder cube, where you look at the 3 dimensions. You look at the power of a stakeholder, their interest, but also their attitude, because attitude is very important. There may be high power, high interest, and maybe negative attitude. They don't like something about the project. Maybe this project is coming up and it's going to affect how they have always done their work or gone about their business, and therefore they will not like it. Or maybe one of the things that they felt should have been considered while designing the project was not considered, and they are not happy about that, okay? And then you also have the onion diagram. You also have the Salient model, okay? All those are models that are used to map the stakeholders, so that you know how much interest, how close they are to the project, how much power, what's their attitude, so that you can develop an engagement plan that is appropriate to the mapping, okay? And then, of course, we say, whereas stakeholder identification starts early, we should also consider stakeholder engagement starting early. Why? Because we want them to act in the interests of the project. Okay, we want them to act in the interest of the project, and stakeholder engagement is key. Is key for the success of the project, because it's one thing to do a project and deliver, and you think you're doing it right, but then if the stakeholders do not know much about what's happening, they could turn against you. Okay, and how do we engage stakeholders? We engage stakeholders using communication. So communication is the channel for stakeholder engagement. And these communications could be maybe face-to-face. Some stakeholders would want to meet. And when we get to meet, we negotiate, we present what the project is about, which approach we're going to use, and we negotiate their buy-in. Okay? We negotiate their buy-in. It could be that this is a stakeholder who is upset, who is unhappy about the project itself. And we'll definitely have to find out why. Why are they unhappy? And then find the best approach to negotiating with these stakeholders. Or maybe it's not the PM who is going to be able to negotiate with this high level in terms of the status of the stakeholder. And maybe you could speak to the steering committee, and maybe a member of the steering committee could approach the stakeholder and engage them, find out why they're not happy about the project, and find ways of aligning our interests with the stakeholder. So stakeholder engagement, very important, and we achieve it through negotiations. We never give them orders to align with the project. That's rare. That's rare. And in modern day project management, it actually doesn't happen. You engage, you understand their interests, and then you engage them with a full understanding of what their interests are, what their concerns are, and that way you have a higher chance of getting them acting in favor of the project through such negotiations. So we say, by engaging the stakeholders, we are bridging the gap. Okay? We're bridging the gap. Some stakeholders may be looking in the other direction. They have other needs, they have other interests. But when we present the case for the project, then we start the engagement that would eventually result into an alignment. Okay, so we must engage proactively and continuously to achieve a shared commitment. Our main goal is not to win. Remember that when you're answering the PMP exam question, or you should always be looking at a collaborative kind of engagement and a result that is mutually beneficial to both the team and the project leadership, and of course the stakeholders. So win-win outcomes are much more favorable. So whenever you have you're looking at a question and it looks like, you know, a stakeholder is demanding this, and the project, and it's not aligned with you know, the requirements, then the first thing would be to engage, find out why, and then maybe consult, and then get into some sort of engagement with them and find something that is mutually agreeable. So understanding interests, not positions, very important when we are negotiating, okay? And not just that, and also separating the issues from the person when we are negotiating, separating issues from the person. So effective negotiation is collaborative. It's not a win-lose, a zero-sum game, no. It's we should always be looking at a collaborative result, one that, you know, where they have a fair share of the gain. Okay, we must first analyze stakeholder needs to understand their underlying interests, not just their stated positions, and this builds a foundation for agreements. And that's why the term agreements comes from. It's not the contractual agreements. PMI uses agreements to mean alignments, mutual agreements of the parties. It could be team agreements. If they say team agreements in the exam content outline, they are referring to a common agreement on what to do, on the roles and responsibilities, on the approach, etc. And that comes as a result of negotiations. As I said at the beginning, negotiations, yes. In this presentation, I'm looking at negotiations from the stakeholder point of view, but we negotiate everything. We even negotiate with our teams as PMs. Then building trust and commitment, we want the stakeholders to have trust in us as PMs, okay? And that can only be earned. Nobody is going to hand it over to us in a silver platter. If we are actively listening, if we are transparent, if we are engaging, then they can trust us, okay? So this is collaborative problem solving. When an agreement is reached, we document commitments to formalize the alignment. That's the professional way of doing things, okay? Then we have this question. let's look at it. A project manager is working on a complex project with multiple stakeholders, which is normally the case. And interestingly, with competing priorities. What should the project manager do with respect to the stakeholders to achieve a better result? So there are multiple stakeholders, you can imagine, and it's a complex project, meaning that, in project management, complexity could refer to having diverse stakeholders with diverse interests, could also refer to a project that has got some work that is unfamiliar that brings in complexity, or it could even be the sheer scale of the project. So this is what this project is. And competing priorities. So their priorities are competing. In other words, they are not in alignment. They are not. One is pulling the other direction and this one is pulling this direction. So what should the project manager do with respect to the stakeholders to achieve a better project result? So that's our role as project managers. We have these people who are looking in different directions and we want to engage them so that they all turn and look in one direction. And we can't order them to do that. So we get it through persuasion, through engagement, through negotiations. Okay, so this is what we're being asked. A, identify and seek stakeholder consensus on project objectives and deliverables. That's exactly what we do. We as PMs, we are like spokespersons, we are like salespeople for the project. Okay. So we engage, first of all, we are very clear about the objectives. We are very clear about the benefits that, will accrue out of the project deliverables and so on and so forth. And that's what we present to them. B, preserve the relationships and rapport with the stakeholders. Does that create alignment? Okay, I don't think so. You can't act by simply preserving your relationships. In other words, you don't want to upset anyone. You don't want to, say in having an opinion or a position that is not aligned with what they said they believe or they want. That, of course, does not get us anywhere. And besides, if that was the case, then there would be no case for negotiations. See, we negotiate because the other party has different interests. That's what negotiations are there for, to align our interests. So we should not shy away from negotiation. So it's not the right answer. C, meet the personal interests of the stakeholders. Okay, that sounds so cheap. Meet the personal interests. Personal, really. Okay, that doesn't make sense. How about the project interests of the project? So, and if they have competing priorities, are you going to meet all their personal interests? That doesn't seem like a plausible answer. D, encourage the stakeholders to accept the proposed viewpoints. Now, that one doesn't sound like negotiations, encouraging the stakeholders to accept the proposed viewpoints. Okay, so the best is A, and the key word in A is seeking consensus. Seek stakeholder consensus. We achieve agreements, we achieve alignment through dialogue, and that's seeking consensus. Wherever you find that word in the answers, especially if it's something to do with disagreements between the teams or between the stakeholders or between the team or the project and the stakeholders, consensus, dialogue, common understanding, agreements, those are the keywords that we seek to use or to achieve. Okay. So a multi-stakeholder project, in a multi-stakeholder, it is important that all stakeholders agree upon the objectives and deliverables. Okay. Preserving the relationship with stakeholders, meeting individual stakeholder objectives, or stipulating what should be done are not project objectives. Surely that's not how we get things done. Okay. Right. So that's about negotiation. And I want to take you straight now to delivering. Okay? Delivering value, that's what it is. We are delivering value. So as I said at the beginning in the intro, value is first understood during the pre-project work, when you have either a business case being prepared, or you have the need that would probably come from the needs assessment, and then you are able to establish value. Now, value could be tangible or intangible, as you must have read in lesson 1, okay? And actually, the way the course is structured, it gives us a very nice flow of how projects evolve in the practical sense. So from, you know, the feasibility study or the business case, and then once it makes sense to the sponsors, then the project is initiated. So the value then is understood during the pre-project work, and also the metrics that we use to know, to define value, to measure value are established at that stage, okay? And this is reflected normally in the business documents, as we call them. And what constitutes the business documents? It's the benefits management plan and the business case. Those two documents define why this project is being done. And as we said, projects are initiated because we want value, okay? Whether it's an internal project or an external project, whether it's a tech project or it's a large engineering project, or it's an expansion of an organization into different geographical locations, it's value that we are looking at. And we have to determine how that value will be measured. So sometimes, of course, on the other hand, you may have intangible benefits, okay? Like the change of a mindset. The project is about carrying out a campaign and changing people's mindsets, okay? Maybe it's about the youth, it's a youth campaign, and we want to change their mindset so they can start innovating, they can learn things to do with the financial literacy, all sorts of people, all sorts of things. So those other projects create an impact, and it has also got its metrics, ways of measuring the impact, okay? So one way or another, value has got to be understood from the get-go. Now, moving forward, as you define the scope of the project, of course, it's informed by the objectives of the project, okay? By the objectives of the project, and then you see you're still focusing on value, okay? Still focusing on value. So you define the scope, the work to be done to achieve the project objectives. And the objectives are the realization of value, okay? The things that must be in place for value to be realized. And then, of course, from there, you have defined what value is. And that should translate into the quality requirements, And should also result into the change management effort, or change management initiatives, so to speak, and also the transition requirements, okay? So we are focusing on value. How will the value be created? We build value in the product. The product should have the features, should have the characteristics that will, you know, create value. Then number 2, how should this product look like? How should it perform? What sort of capabilities, or what do we need to see about the capabilities that will give us a sense or the assurance that, you know, it will create value? And that's the acceptance criteria, okay? Those are the terms that, of course, the candidates, are familiar with, having gone over the course content, the acceptance criteria. So you have a checklist of things, the capabilities. Maybe you're looking at functional and non-functional requirements, okay? And then you are able to see those characteristics that the solution or the product should have if it's going to realize value. Then at the end, you are looking at how the product is going to transition, yeah, for ease of adoption, for ease of use, and so on and so forth, for it to realize benefits. But of course, in the process, you have what we call quality management processes, okay? You're doing those reviews, whether they are sprint reviews or in the predictive sense, you're doing quality assurance. Those are meant to give you the assurance that we are headed in the right direction, we'll have the right product that will create value. Then at the end, of course, you have the readiness and transition requirements. Whether if it's a product, is it going to be turned over in a progressive way, or is it going to be a one-time cutover? How is data migration going to happen? All those have a bearing on value. And then at the end, there's what we refer to, of course, which is normally put together in the early stages, which is the benefits management plan, and its subcomponent would be the benefits realization process or plan. Okay, so that's when the project has come to an end and successfully, hopefully, and we are handing over. The last one that I would like us to think about is to reflect on or remember is that value could be realized incrementally. There could be incremental realization of value. You're having a project, but this project is divisible. So you have value being realized like building blocks, okay? So we are halfway and value, we're already handing over functional features or a functional portion of the product into the hands of the customers, and they're making use of it. And we transition, we move on, we deliver the second chunk of features, they put them to use, and the third chunk and on until it's completed. That's incremental value delivery. Then we also consider value realization at the end when the project is completed and value transitions. Value is realized and we hand over in one right at the end of the project, especially for those that use the predictive approach. Like if you're building a district hospital, building a bridge, we're building a highway, building a factory, a warehouse, things like that. And then we also have other projects where value is realized post-project, so many months or even years. Let's consider maybe, especially that we are speaking to people in sub-Saharan Africa, you understand maybe a crop called coffee. Let's say the project is to, expand or grow or, expand our coffee plantation. That's what the project is about. But when the project is completed, we have planted coffee trees, but we don't have coffee cherries. So we have to wait 2.5, 3 years for the coffee trees to mature and to have these cherries and to be processed and to export, and the value might be export forex, okay? Export revenues. And then it means the value is going to be realized so many years after the project has come to an end. So value realization could be incremental during the course of the project before it comes to an end, could be at the end, or could be several months or years after. Okay, but things to note, there must be metrics that we use to measure value. There must be a clear understanding of how the value transition will be, the benefits will transition into the hands of the recipients and so on and so forth. Right, a question here about that components. In the middle of a 3-year-long project, the company committee overseeing the project becomes uncertain about whether the final outcome will meet the expectations and provide the anticipated value. Here, I think the company committee overseeing the project might be a steering committee or a project board, okay? And they are getting concerned whether they are uncertain about whether the final outcome will meet their expectations and provide the anticipated value. As the project manager, what proactive step can you take to address the committee's concerns and ensure that the project delivers the expected value? As a project manager, what proactive step can you take to address the committee's concerns and ensure that the project delivers the expected value? A, extend the project timeline to allow for more thorough testing, where that may not be very helpful. Let's consider B, develop a prototype to present to the committee. A prototype. We need to know some of these terms. I wish to encourage you to always make reference to the glossary of terms which PMI provides where you can check. It used to be the lexicon of terms, but these days it's the glossary. It has got all these terms in project management, and depending on which background you have, some terms may be clear and some other terms may be unfamiliar, but good enough, PMI has thought about that, and we have the glossary of terms. So what is a prototype? A prototype is like a functional model of, the final product, okay? That can be put out for review, for testing, for use, and you look at it and confirm. So it's meant to solicit feedback, to confirm that this is something that we want. So this could be an interesting thing to do for the committee. C, increase the project budget to accommodate potential changes. Did they talk about changes? It looks like somebody is concerned and we decide to throw money at their concerns. We need to first find the root cause. What's the problem? And the best way to engage them is to show them something like a model or a structure of a product, or have them come in our workspace and we show them what we are building. And then they can give us their feedback and so on and so forth. Before we start thinking about the budget for the changes, we don't know budget to change what, okay? And how much, we don't know. So then D, update the project schedule with detailed milestones. That won't be helpful. So the best answer here would be B, where we develop a prototype. It's like a working model. If it's, of course, these days we have the digital models. If, for example, it's a building, you could actually have not only the 3Ds, but even fly through, as they call it. It's like a camera taking you through the building. If they're keen to see the security systems, they are keen to see the access points, they are keen to see the openings, what is where, they are able to see that using a prototype, okay? Different words are used for a prototype. It could be a mock-up, yeah, and you invite your steering committee or other stakeholders to come and look at it. And then they will tell you the things that they appreciate and the things that they want you to change before you build the real product. So you present a prototype. It's like a model, okay? It's a model of the products. Right, so answer is B, of course. Developing a prototype to present to the committee is an effective way to anticipate and demonstrate the value delivery of the final project result. So having a prototype is always good. But of course, remember, on some projects, a prototype will cost something. But then as the organization decides whether to go with a prototype or not, you have got to make trade-offs. Do I want to take a risk without a prototype and just build? No. The best way, the smartest way, is to budget for that prototype so that people can give their feedback, the stakeholders can come and look at it, end users, especially if it's something that is new, you want something that you can try and see, get to see the feedback. So a prototype provides tangible representation of the product or project, allowing the committee to visualize how it will work and look. This can help them understand its functionality, user experience, and align with their expectations. So you see, the whole point is to give them the assurance that what we're working on should work for you. So if you have any doubts, please come and look at the prototype, come and look at the design, come and look at the model. So prototypes also allow for early feedback, which can be valuable. For example, if they want to change some things, it's much more economical for them to propose or to mention the changes before we build the final products, and making necessary adjustments before the project goes too far. All right, so that's it for the 3 points that I was supposed to talk about, and I would like to hear from you questions, and I would be happy to have a discussion with the candidates. Any questions for me?
Feel free to just lift your hand and I will unmute you if there's any questions. Otherwise, we'll just continue. I see no questions on the chat as well. So I think let's just go on.
Right. If you could allow maybe 3-5 minute break and then we carry on.
Sure.
Is that okay? Yes.
That's fine. Let's take a 5-minute break. Class, you're taking 5 minutes break and we will be back.
Thank you. Okay, shall we resume?
Yes.
Please look at the question, and I would like to hear from you about the answer. And then we can have a discussion about which answer and why.
We've started getting some answers on the chat.
Okay.
Majority are Bs, but we have A's and D's as well.
Okay. Right. So let's examine this question. So your project sponsor resigned from the organization. So the sponsor is gone. A few weeks later, you're reviewing the business case for the project, and you find that there are several inconsistencies between what is stated in the business case and what is described in the project scope. Now, you must remember that matters to do with the business case are very, very sensitive because the business case sets the direction. It's what informs the charter. It has got the objectives of the project. It defines what is value, the value that is expected from the project. And now there are inconsistencies between the business case and the scope. Further research shows that the business case as a whole is based on inaccurate information. Which of the following represents your best course of action? So, friends, you must realize that and this is from research, that the business case is based on inaccurate information. So that should be something that should be threatening to send us to square one. So let's look at the options. A, notify your project stakeholders immediately. I'm sure if it is something that you have discovered and looks like this business case, in other words, this entire project is built on inaccurate information, that's something that you would want to raise with the stakeholders, okay? Because the sponsor is not there anymore. B, add this to the risk log. We know what a risk log is, more or less like a risk register. And what this artifact does is that it captures things that are uncertain, things that are likely to happen in the future. And if they were to happen, they would affect the project. Therefore, this has already happened. It's no longer a risk. Okay, it's no longer a risk because the project is built on inaccurate information. It's falling apart. Okay, so B is not a likely answer. C, update the requirements. But you know, this second last line doesn't seem to. It's not something that you fix with requirements. D, call the sponsor for the clarification. The sponsor who resigned. I'm sure you realize that D wouldn't be a correct answer. So then the answer would be A. So we say you notify your project stakeholders immediately. They can determine the best path forward. An incorrect business case would have a serious impact on the usability of the final output of your project, or it could even impact the company's strategic goals. It means we are embarking on a project that is going in a direction that nobody knows. Inaccurate information. Where did they get this information from? Nobody knows. Okay, so it wouldn't be any of the others of the other options except A. Let's look at the next one.
think most of the answers that are coming in are B's. And we have A as well, B and A.
Okay, so let's make sense of this question. A project stakeholder has been missing scheduled facilitation workshops and has delegated assigned tasks to another member of the stakeholder community. So you had a project stakeholder, but this stakeholder has been absent, meaning that they are not informed. The communication is broken now because we engage stakeholders through communications. That's when we get to speak to them, share information, also get feedback. Feedback is very important in stakeholder engagement, but looks like that one is broken. And then they have delegated somebody else. So we have another member of the stakeholder community. What should the project manager do to engage this stakeholder? By saying this stakeholder, that's the new stakeholder. What do you do to engage the stakeholders, a new stakeholder? A, review with the stakeholder the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved as specified in the project charter. Okay, so you're taking them through the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved as specified in the project charter. That's not a bad thing. It's a good idea. B, explain to the stakeholder the difference among the tasks assigned to each project team member. Okay, is that a good one? Well, I'm not sure many stakeholders would have the time to understand or to allow you as a PM to take them through the tasks assigned to each team member, considering a medium to large sized project where you have about maybe 15, 30, or even more people. I don't think a random stakeholder would be keen to know what everyone is doing. So that's probably a weak answer. C, ask the program manager to brief this stakeholder and to require the stakeholder's attendance at all relevant meetings. So that's a wrong answer because you're not going to delegate your responsibility to a program manager. Remember, a program manager is above a project manager. Normally, a program is a grouping of related projects. So you have a program manager as probably your boss. Okay, so if I'm a PM, the program manager is my boss. So I only go to them when it is a matter that needs to be escalated, something that is beyond my authority. That's when I go to the program manager or anybody above me. So that's not a likely answer. D, pair the stakeholder with a more experienced team member who can act as a mentor. So you're going to have a team member mentoring a stakeholder. So I'm sure we are now looking at A and D. Okay, so D, you're having a team member. One of your project team members is the one mentoring a stakeholder. Okay. That's an unlikely answer. So the answer is definitely A. It is a responsibility of the PM to ensure that the stakeholders are adequately onboarded. They may have concerns, they may have questions, and these are supposed to be attended to by the PM. Okay, they may have different views, and we have to really engage them, negotiate, and have some sort of common agreement. So the first version of the stakeholder engagement plan is developed after the initial stakeholder community has been identified by the process. The stakeholder engagement plan is updated regularly to reflect changes in the stakeholder community. So something to note, stakeholders will always change. You could have new faces replacing the old ones. You could even have completely new stakeholders. For example, you get to a stage and you have an interest, a group that has an interest in what you're doing only at that stage. And they will show up and we identify them immediately as stakeholders and we update our stakeholder register and of course the stakeholder engagement plan, having understood the best way to engage them, what their interests are, etc. So we will review with the stakeholder the roles and responsibilities of everyone involved as specified in the project charter. This will help us to engage the stakeholder very well. Next.
Okay, mostly A's. We have D as an answer as well, but majority are A's.
Okay, so let's make sense of the question. The scenario, a project team learns that there is a new compliance requirement from an international entity that may impact the baseline business case for the project. This is something that affects the value of the project or how the project is going to be executed. And if it's a compliance requirement, there are no two ways about it, okay? Wherever you find a compliance requirement, just know it's not something that you can postpone, okay? Something that you have to act on. So they run this right after the project charter is completed and the sponsor has signed. So this is coming post the approval of the project. How should the project manager proceed? So this is something new that is going to alter things. So, and you know, and they're very clear. It may impact the baseline business case for the project. So, A, research the requirements and possible consequences, then give the sponsor a recommendation, because the project charter is a sponsor's document. That's why in this specific case, the sponsor will be a go-to person. Why? Because the charter is a sponsor's document. It's the one that specifies the objectives of the project and high-level information that is approved for the project. So that's A, is a good answer. B, address the requirements through the creation of a quality management plan. Surely, if it is something that is going to change, to alter the content of the business case and of course the charter, then we haven't gotten to a level of developing a quality management plan. And even if we were there, that would not address the problem because it changes the entire setup of the project. Okay, so B is an unlikely answer. C, decline to address the issue as the new requirement is not part of the project's documented scope. No, as I said, if it's a compliance requirement, there are no two ways about it. Normally, we have to comply, okay? D, ensure that the requirement is documented in the risk register, then ask for further guidance from all stakeholders, okay? So a risk, we said in a risk register or a risk log, or how is it called? A list of risks is a place where you record or document events or things that could happen, and if they were to happen, things which are uncertain. First of all, they are uncertain. You're not sure they could happen or may not happen. And if they were to happen, they would have an effect on the project. So these are things that are into the future. We think they are likely to happen. So, but this one has already occurred. It's not like we have had information that is likely to be a compliance requirement coming out in the next, I don't know, 6 months. No, this one is there. There is a new compliance requirement. So it's no longer a risk. It's actually an issue that we have to deal with, that we have to take action against. And then the first thing, whenever there is such a change, or something that will cause a change, we have to investigate, find out what this compliance requirement will require, how it will affect the project, what we need to do to comply. And then we present it to the sponsor, who will look at maybe complying might cost us some money. We might change the scope of the project in order to comply, in order to build in features that, will make the project compliant. So definitely the answer is A. The context of this scenario demands the project manager to influence the organization and recommend next steps after reviewing and understanding compliance requirements and consequences. So if such a thing happens, if it befalls your project, the first thing is to gather enough information about the consequences of this new requirement. And then once you have, laid your hands on what it will take to comply and the impacts, maybe even the risk of not complying. So you get all this information and maybe the recommended course of action and we present it to the sponsor. Why? Because the sponsor is the author of the project charter. Next.
Majority is A, but we have D as well.
Okay. Good. So a project manager for a construction firm meets with stakeholders, which is a usual thing. All stakeholders agree on a 20-month life cycle for a project. So what does that mean? Means that there has been a discussion and there's a common agreement. These are the agreements that we're talking about. After work has begun, the project manager learns that stakeholders would like project completion within no more than 12 weeks. Now, let's compare the 20 months and 12 weeks. So 20 months is how many weeks? We have 4 times 20, that's 80 weeks. So now they are shrinking the project duration from 80 weeks to 12 weeks. Okay, can you envision that? So what should be the first step in the project manager's response? Okay? Just imagine work that they had initially agreed that will have to be completed in 80 weeks, that's 20 months, is now being, they are suggesting that it should be done in 12 weeks. Maybe something has gone wrong. Maybe something unusual happened. So what should be the first step in the project manager's response? A, meet with key stakeholders to discuss ways to reduce some project requirements. And this is about reducing the scope of the project. Okay, that's response A. B, add team members to work more quickly just this one time in order to satisfy stakeholder requirements. Surely, that's unusual. It doesn't sound like a good answer, because how many people, how many resources would you increase to reduce the duration of the project from 80 weeks to 12? Okay. That doesn't sound like something that is practical. C, refuse to modify the timeline. explaining that scope creep should be discouraged. So here we have two wrongs in this answer. Refuse is not a term that a project manager would want to be associated with. Okay, everything is achieved through agreement, discussions, negotiations. Okay, so that of course disqualifies it. But if you go on explaining that scope creep should be discouraged, that one is out of context. D, identify agreed upon tasks in the original project and assign additional duties as needed to meet the new shorter timeline. Is that a solution? Okay. Identify agreed upon tasks in the original project and assign additional duties. So you're assigning people additional duties so that you can shrink the duration from 80 weeks to 12 weeks. Doesn't sound like a practical one. So A is correct. Consistent with executing the project with urgency, working with stakeholders to reduce the requirements is the best option listed to reduce the delivery time. So here, when you talk about requirements, you're talking about the scope. Because if you're saying, Robert, you've been taking so much time doing running a PMP course, and it covers, the entire scope. And then you're saying, Robert, you have got to do it in 1 day. So what will I do? I will now look at maybe what is considered to be a priority and scale it down, or maybe it won't be possible, okay? So A is the best answer. Next.
The answers are mixed. Looks like there's every answer here, but majority are B's.
Okay, this makes sense of the scenario. Certain key stakeholders are dissatisfied with how a key feature of a project has been developed, and this is not unusual. This happens. Why? Because we do projects for people, and we demonstrate whatever we are doing. There's nothing to hide, and then they give us feedback for us to be sure that we are creating something that is acceptable to them. In other words, we are creating value or something that is fit for the purpose. So they express their dissatisfaction through an iteration review meeting. And this is what an iteration review meeting is supposed to do. It's a moment for the team, for us, the project team, to demonstrate to the stakeholders, including maybe the product owner or the business people, what we have been busy doing maybe during the iteration. So they can give us feedback on what is working, what's not working. We can do the testing, we can do the reviews, etc. So what should the project manager do first to resolve this issue? Now, whenever you have a deliverable that has been rejected, you have a stakeholder that is dissatisfied, you have team members that are demotivated, you have a sponsor that is complaining about something, the first thing that you need to do, unless it's given in the narrative, is to find the root cause, find out why. As professionals, we only act once we have known what the issue is about, okay? So what should the project manager do first to resolve this issue? A, gather the project team for a brainstorming session and identify a solution, okay? That's a bit vague, okay? Gather the project team for a brainstorming session, but then you see you're brainstorming with the team, and yet you have the key stakeholders being the people who are not happy about what has happened. So you only speculate with your team, okay? So the best thing would be to engage them. So B, identify the reasons why there are issues with the feature, then address the feature, okay? So now you go, that's much more direct. What are the issues? What's wrong with the feature? Okay, rather than brainstorming. When you brainstorm to have ideas about what to do. You don't brainstorm. You don't brainstorm on something that has happened. Okay, it's like you're asking people to generate ideas. You brainstorm when you're identifying potential stakeholders, possible risks, and so on and so forth. C, create a list of pros and cons of the situation to define the impact of the conflict. Where we are in the business here of resolving the issue, the problem. So we won't look at the pros and cons. We will actually go straight and find out what the issues are in order to know the next course of action. So C is an unlikely answer. D, add a neutral party, such as the sponsor, to function as a negotiator with the stakeholders. Of course, that's wrong. The sponsor should not come in the picture at this point. It should actually be an engagement between the project manager and the stakeholders to find out what is it that they are unhappy about. And then once you understand, we get to understand that, then we take action. Okay? So yes, the answer is B. Identifying the source of conflict is a key initial step in conflict management. Any disagreement, any if they turn back a product because of maybe a defect, we need to find out why. Or if they're just complaining and saying this is not acceptable to us, we don't say we will take action. No, we first find out what the cause is. Next. Okay.
Yep. So you have majority being, well, this is actually pretty mixed. We have A's, we have C's, we have D's as well.
Okay, interesting. Thank you. So a project is delayed to obtain the desired quality level of the deliverables. A change is required. Okay. First, the project manager issues a formal change request. Okay. to deal with the change that is required and communicates the change to all stakeholders, which is the right thing to do. Then the project manager learns that this communications approach did not meet stakeholders' expectations. What should the project manager do next? So assuming you are in the PM's shoes and you have sent out some important communication, and you're receiving calls from Robert, from I don't know, Farida, from Issa, and they are saying we are not receiving any information, or this is not the channel through which we expect such formal communications. So you're getting that kind of feedback and you're saying, okay, so what's going on? What's wrong? So what would you do next? Would you immediately ask them how you should change? The most important thing at that point is to go back and say, initially, when we did the stakeholder mapping and we understood the stakeholder, what we call stakeholder communication requirements, where did we document them? Normally, the stakeholder communication requirements are in the communications management plan. The communications management plan gives us a sense of how we plan to communicate with which stakeholders, what to communicate with them, the frequency of communication, the channels of communication, and maybe how detailed the information, the communications should be, because some stakeholders do not like detailed information. They would like high-level summaries because they don't have time, especially the senior people, okay? So that's where we should be looking to see how come this communication approach or method is not acceptable to the stakeholders. What was initially captured in the communications management plan, we want to find out fast. That should be the thinking, okay? So A, refer to the communications management and stakeholder engagement plans. That's the right thing to do. B, provide a change request to include stakeholders' expectations in the project management plan. Now, the reason why B might not be a plausible answer is because maybe somebody who was communicating did not follow the communications management plan. So before we conclude that we should actually modify the communication management plan or anything to do with the project management plan, we need to first check what the communications or stakeholder engagement plan says. And by the way, on B, you see it says provide a change request to include stakeholders' expectations in the project management plan. So which plan? It's a bit vague. Okay? Should be communications management plan to be direct. C, organize a meeting with the project sponsor to better understand stakeholders' expectations. So how does the sponsor come into the picture? Looks like this is somebody who fears facing the stakeholders, and in that meeting, they want the sponsor to be around. So that's not a good answer. D, review the communications management plan, follow it, and issue a status report. Reviewing the communications management plan is a nice thing to do, but the things that follow it and issue a status report. That might. So we're probably, it would be between A and D, but one is better than the other. So you need to refer to the communications management plan, stakeholder engagement plans, because you see, you're trying to find what the problem is before you. What disqualifies D is following it. You're not going to follow it unless you find that maybe in the communications you had somebody made a mistake. Okay, instead of communicating to Robert through email, they just sent me a WhatsApp message and they attached a document. Okay, a change request or something like that, and I don't like it. I say these are formal communications and they should come through to me via email, something like that. But now you're saying this says review the communications management plan, follow it. No. We can't follow it until we find that actually what it says is right. It's somebody who did the communication that made a mistake, okay? So that's the reasoning. So monitoring of the communications process may result in improved effectiveness of communication through additional or possibly amended communication plans and activities. Okay, such iterations illustrate the continuous nature of the project communications processes. So we are continuously getting feedback on what's working, what's not working in terms of communications, and updating our documents. We are coming towards the end. Question number 8. Let's look at this.
So far we've got A, D, and C. Oh, we have a B now. It's actually mixed.
Okay, that's good. A project's single sponsor has been replaced by a steering committee due to a significant increase in project size. So in this situation, you have somebody who's acting as a sponsor, and because the scale of the project, the size of the project has increased, and they say, no, it shouldn't be a one-person show, it should be a steering committee that acts as a sponsor, which is not unusual. How should the project manager approach this change? Okay. So you have a steering committee that is providing oversight over the projects. A, tailor communications to the new steering committee, recognizing that there has been a change in stakeholder structure. That statement is correct. B, follow the initial plan, okay, recognizing that the stakeholder group now includes the steering committee. Follow the initial plan, recognizing that the stakeholder group now includes the steering committee. It's a bit this statement has contradictions. If you follow the initial project plan, let's maybe say the initial project communication plan, it says, as we said, the communications management plan will state who the stakeholders are, what their communication requirements are in terms of the frequency of communication, channels of communication, what to communicate with them, level of detail, level of formality, and so on and so forth. Now, if we're saying we follow the initial plan, recognizing that the stakeholder group now includes the steering committee, you don't just recognize unless it's about updating it with information about the communication requirements of the new steering committee. Okay, so it's a weak answer. It's a bit contradicting. You follow the plan on one hand and then simply recognize. C, schedule a low-key introductory meeting with the new steering committee and the team while continuing to follow the initial project plan. Of course not. Okay, so the point here is about communications and how they have altered, how they have been altered by a new group of stakeholders. D, ensure that the new steering committee members receive the project's current status report. That's not a bad thing, but now that's only about the current status report. How about all the other communications going forward? Because there will be a lot of communication, a lot of information that is exchanged between the project and the steering committee. So A is the best answer. So the project manager needs to be proactive and respond to this change. You see, whenever there are changes, let's recall, when we are in the planning stage, we take into consideration the EEFs, enterprise environmental factors. We take into consideration organizational process assets. We take into consideration the work to be done, the nature of the work, okay? And then we develop a plan that is realistic. This could be a communications management plan, could be a stakeholder engagement plan, could be a scope management plan, could be a quality management plan, which really gives us a sense of the approach that we'll use. Now, once that plan has been drawn, normally and we are done with the planning, it's kind of approved. And it reflects the information that we have when the planning was being done. Now, should any change come after that planning stage, we have got to update the plan, okay? So that's the point here. If you have new stakeholders, then you have got to update your stakeholder engagement plan, you update your communication management plan, okay? Last question, I guess.
Okay, so we have all answers except C.
Okay. Right. So
A and D.
A and D. Okay. Right. So let's make sense of this question again. We say in response to slippage on some scheduled tasks means that they are lagging behind, they are behind schedule. The project manager reprioritized a number of subsequent tasks in order to fix the problem. The reprioritization did not put the project back on track, meaning that the PM has made an effort, but looks like we cannot gain the lost time. And now the project manager needs to escalate the issue to the project stakeholders. In other words, looks like the delay is imminent. It's going to happen. So we had better keep the stakeholders informed. Okay, that's the decision of the project manager. Now, to escalate the issue, what should the project manager do first? Okay, so the project manager wishes to communicate with the stakeholders and wishes to communicate something that is that important. So where does he or she look to understand how to communicate, which channels, and how to communicate this kind of information? It should be in the communication management plan. Now, the stakeholder engagement plan is different. The stakeholder engagement plan gives us a sense of how we will engage different kinds of stakeholders. And the stakeholder engagement plan is through communication. Okay? The stakeholder engagement plan gives us a sense of how we will engage them based on their interest, based on their power, how important they are, how much authority they have, based on their attitude. Now, the method of communication that we use in stakeholder engagement should be picked or should have been documented in the communications management plan. Let me also say this. In the communication management plan, we find what we call communication protocols. For example, when you are escalating, not anybody can escalate. So there should be some sort of guidance on how to escalate, what to escalate, okay? So that should be in the communication management plan. Now C, refer to the change management plan. The answer is no. We are talking about escalating, and the project manager wants to know how to do it. D, review the risk management plan. Okay, so D, you review the risk management plan. First of all, maybe a few things about the risk management plan. The risk management plan gives us a sense of how we will manage the risks on a project, how we will identify risks, what are the typical risks on that typical risks that affect that specific project. It will give us a sense of whether there is a risk management strategy at the level of the organization that is going to inform the risk management plan. So when you're talking about the risk management plan, you're only discussing the approach, nothing like any risks. It doesn't give you any list of risks for that project. It only gives you the approach that you use in identifying risks, analyzing them, and developing risk responses. It's just a guideline or some sort of guidance and approach, okay? So then the best answer would be A. The communications management plan is developed to ensure that the appropriate messages are communicated to stakeholders in various formats, or if you like, appropriate formats, and various means, if you like, appropriate means as defined by the communication strategy. On that note, I come to the end of my presentation to you. Let me once again say it's always a pleasure to engage PMP candidates. I understand the amount of time that you put in preparing for the exam. It's worth it. I want to encourage you. It's worth the effort. Of course, because of the opportunities that await you after you certified and you're a confident project manager and you have mastered all these concepts and you're out there, leading projects. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Nelson.
All right. Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you so much for delivering this very insightful session and just going through the questions as well in detail and the content. This has been very helpful, and I'm sure that the candidates have really benefited as well. So I'm not sure if you have a slide on that has your details where the candidates can reach out to you directly if they would like to engage you. If you do, or you could post on the chat as well.
Okay, let me do that.
Yes, you could post on the chat. So that's okay. So to the candidates, thank you again for showing up today. Like you always say, showing up is important as we go through this. And for those that are sitting for the exams this week from tomorrow, we wish you all the best. We ensure you get enough rest if you're sitting for exam tomorrow. Yeah, wishing you all the best for the exams. Let's keep engaging on the WhatsApp group. We'll communicate on future webinars as well on a WhatsApp group and also on email. The recording for this session will be shared hopefully tomorrow, and you'll be able to access it. In case of any questions, just post in the WhatsApp group or write to me directly. I'll be able to assist. Robert has posted his details on the chat. You can engage him directly as well. His email has been posted there. So thank you so much. Have a good evening. Have a good night wherever you are. Thank you so much once again, Robert.
Pleasure. Thank you too.